Greetings and thank you for listening to Level with Emily and watching us here on our YouTube channel. Today's conversation is with drummer Dom Palombi. Percussionist is a better descriptor for him, but Dom runs a band called Game Night, and his album's titled the same, Game Night, is available on Bandcamp. It is absolutely fantastic and features just a long list of fantastic musicians, including Insane in the Rain Music. Super Soul Bros are on here. Patrick Bartley is on here. Charlie Rosen is on the album. It's absolutely fantastic. I got to meet Dom because they came and performed at VGMCon here in Minneapolis the first weekend in April. And it was so great to meet him, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Of course, the audio version, keep this in mind, the audio version of our podcast has music mixed in, and this YouTube version doesn't. Thank you, copyright. But in any event, be sure to check out the audio version over on Patreon, where you can support us. You'll find a playlist there as well. And Dom and I, as far as this conversation goes, we start off talking about how he decided to make the album in the first place. So here is Dom Palombi on Level with Emily. Thanks so much.
It's a dream project that I didn't really think would come to such magnitude, in all honesty. I just wanted to put out badass music with badass musicians, and I've met so many amazing people through the years of getting into the VGM scene and streaming, and it's a whole combination of things that we'll get into. But it's as I said before, it's a culmination of the amount of time and effort and work and people that I've met that I wanted to like really make something special and give something back to the community in a way that they've never heard video game music before. So
Right. And if you were to explain to someone like my mother what this album is, what would you say to her?
I would pretty much say it's a funk fusion compilation of video game music and originals compositions inspired by video game music. If somebody is not a fan of video game music, if they like funk, if they like 70s, they like Scary Pockets, Wolfpack, Lewis Cole, Lettuce, any of those names that ring a bell to them, they're going to like the album. Like, heck, my mom loves listening to it, and she's not really a big video game music fan. You know? I realize when we talk about video game music specifically, it definitely, shortens or it doesn't necessarily shorten. I think the word I'm specifically saying, it the opposite of broaden. It makes, the audience or the circles of people significantly smaller because we're targeting a more specific audience.
Yeah.
I think my overall goal is, whether regardless if people like video game music or not, it's still good music. Like, it doesn't matter if you've been following the composers for like Super Mario or Legend of Zelda or Mega Man or any of those people. They've been putting out music that have been inspired by our traditions back in the day. So it just makes sense that it's like we're trying to kind of like carry those traditions that they're carrying on. It's a funny, collision of worlds that happens when we talk about this kind of stuff. I guess like I was I don't want to say I was a complete avid gamer growing up as a kid, but I played a lot of games. I played Xbox, I played Wii, I played GameCube, I had a PlayStation. Didn't necessarily think of any of the video game music as like a prominent thing. But now that, my whole perspective of it has changed, I was like, how can I transform this music into something that fits my style, but then also is very accessible to anybody, not just gamers or nerds or people that are into this kind of stuff specifically. Because one, it's nostalgic to us, but at the same time too, somebody just happened to hear this on the radio, they might or might not know it's from a video game. Who knows? But
Right, and that's one of the things I love too about the album is that you do some originals. So I want to talk about those for sure. It opens with an original, and I think there's 3 originals on the album, right? And then some great covers of Sonic and Halo, and we'll get into all of that. But you said something that I'm really curious about, because you mentioned that you didn't really, even though you were a gamer, you weren't really considering the music as much separately from the gaming experience. You know what I mean? So how old were you when you started playing music?
So my parents raised triplets for the first part of it.
Okay.
3 kids, 2 twin sisters, and I was the fraternal twin of all three of us. Um, Probably around when we were like 9 or 10 years old, we all started having the opportunity to be like, oh, okay, grade school introduces you to hearing about instruments. It was actually before that period of time. One of my sisters started taking piano lessons at a local school nearby, and influence of her, my other sister decided to take guitar lessons. And influence of them, I was like, well, I don't want to be the only one that doesn't do it, so I might as well like try to do something music related. So I wanted to take piano lessons, but the school at the time had too many students. They were completely capped. And then I heard the drums in the background, and I was just like, wait, what's that? And walk by the drum lesson room and just see, and there's this huge, massive room of drums and cymbals, 2 drum sets set up, and I was like, whoa, what is this? So took a drum lesson when I was about 10 years old, and had literally just got in love with it as soon as I had a first few lessons. Kept doing it for pretty much started studying with this drum teacher Matt Lewis for like 8 years, all the way from grade school all the way up to the end of high school. And then pretty much from there, I was just like, what's the one thing that I want to do the most? It was play the drums. It was, continue this music thing. So finish my high school career, and then get into Rutgers University at Mason Grove School of the Arts.
Okay.
Went through the whole jazz department and pretty much finished my jazz performance degree in 2016. Getting to study with Victor Lewis, Robbie Amin, and then under the tutelage of Joe Magnarelli, Bill O'Connell, Ralph Bowen, Vic Juris at the time before he passed away. So I was very lucky that I had some time to share with him. Conrad Herwig leads the program, and it was just an all-star lineup of musicians. But when I first auditioned there, I was just like, I have no knowledge of who teaches here, who does what. So it was a very transformative experience going through that. I started playing drums when I was 10, and it just kind of just kept going with it, because at that moment I kind of was like, I don't think there's anything else I'm relatively good at that I could like figure out to do for my life. And when high school was ending at the period of time, I was just like, yeah, no, like I'm good at math, I'm good at science, but that stuff's boring. I don't want to sit in an office and have to write and type up stuff 9 to 5 kind of thing. I wanted it to do something drastically different, and I'm very happy I've been doing that for a while now.
So what made you choose the jazz path? Because as a drummer, there's so obviously with any instrument you can do a billion different things. So
Right.
What connected you to jazz?
I guess the first thing was middle school comes around after I get through 4th and 5th grade, and I find out there's a jazz band. I see there's a drum set in the jazz band, and I was like, I want to play drums for that, just because my brain didn't think at that age any, I was just like, drums, I want to do it and just get into it.
Yeah.
But then 6th grade comes up, and I missed the chance to audition for the band. So I made it a really big point in my mind to where, like, okay, if I want to get in this band, I need to learn stuff about jazz. So I went to my drum teacher, and I was like, hey, I want to get in a jazz band. What do we got to do to learn this stuff? And he was like, great, we're going to start, teaching you all the different kinds of swing beats. We're going to listen to a bunch of different kinds of music. I even remember at the time my parents got me a Buddy Rich album way back when. I forget what it's called, but it was one of the first jazz records I listened to, and also the very best of John Coltrane was like one of the other sets of recordings. So instantly I was already listening back to,
Elvin Jones.
Elvin Jones, Buddy Rich, just legends. I didn't necessarily think of anybody else at the time. And then Kind of Blue, Miles Davis Kind of Blue was like just another album that like really hit me, or at least like So What. I always loved that tune.
Oh yeah.
So once I kind of told my teacher that, I was like, okay, 7th grade comes around, I audition, I get in the band. I'm like, cool, we get to like, play and learn stuff. And it was, challenging. I actually remember at the time too, the drum set was set up interestingly where the ride cymbal was on the left-hand side, or at the time, no, I forget that. I was actually playing like open-handed when I first got started. So left hand like kind of on the hi-hat area, right hand on the snare. But then making the switch to play the ride cymbal parts were always the most complicated thing. And one of the other drummers in the band was just like, why don't you just take your, cross over your hands from your hi-hat to your snare and do the, move your right hand, so you're not having to be like,
Yep.
switching places left and right. So that was honestly the only reason why I got into jazz at the time.
Yeah.
But as things progressed, I started to listen to the music a lot more. I started to get a more of an ear for it, and I was just like, yeah, this improv stuff is really cool. Like I love all sorts of kinds of styles of music. I love funk, I love rock, I love blues. I played actually with a rockabilly band when I was like 16 for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And they were
Nice.
taking me and bringing me into bars, and I'm like the only person there that feels young as heck. Like I can't drink anything. I'm just the drummer here, to play that card again. But it was fun because I was just like getting to try to expand my horizons on all the different kinds of styles of playing. I tried to do a few punk metal stuff. That wasn't really necessarily my vibe, but
Yeah.
like I still respect any drummer that does it, any kind of style of music, because there's certain language that we all have to learn, and there's certain roles that we have to play depending on the context. So I kind of just wanted to do anything and everything drumming related. But I think still jazz stuck out to me the most because it was the most free,
Yep.
fulfilling, or I want to say more specifically, the ability for us to express ourselves in a very natural way,
Yeah.
really attached to me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
having a hard time figuring out what words to say. God damn it! I think you
It's all
understand what
good.
I'm saying, though.
I do. I do.
It's that freedom of expression, and the improv sense is something I really thrive off of outside of playing tunes. So that's always
Yeah.
what I felt like kept me on my toes with listening to somebody else and reacting to that and having a conversation and building that. So I just kept sticking with it because I think it was just something that naturally fit for what I was doing.
Yeah. So when did keyboard come? I mean, how did you learn about harmony and stuff then? Because,
Hmm.
you're writing originals, so clearly you have
Right.
an understanding of jazz harmony and all of that. So when did you start learning those things?
So actually, funny enough, we had a keyboard in our house for a good period of time. It was one of those old Casio keyboards that you press the keys, they light up. Sometimes my dad would literally, press a start to play "The Girl from Ipanema," and he still says he can play it to this day because you would just, touch one key to play the melody, and the keyboard wouldn't keep going unless you played the right song. So we had that in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and there were actually a few times when I was a kid, very young, my mom's dad and I would play a few tunes like Heart and Soul. Like
Sure.
we used to do that all the time, and that actually brings me back way a bit. But when I got into college, every music major that went to Rutgers or the Mason Gross School of the Arts had to pass a piano proficiency exam, meaning
Mm-hmm.
you can't graduate if you do not know how to play piano. Like,
Yeah.
not an option. So I was just like, well, I guess I'm screwed. I guess I just can't. No, I ended up like forcing myself in taking 2 years of piano courses because I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the only way that I'm actually legitimately going to be able to learn how to play the instrument and pass the exam. And
Yeah.
I'm glad I did that because it really helped me at least get a good foundation of understanding, correct fingerings, chord voicings. Once that happened, I had a jazz piano harmony class with Bill O'Connell, and
Huh.
that just
Wow.
he just tore my brain apart. That
Yeah.
just like learning 2/5s, learning, better voice leading, playing melodies, and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That really opened my eyes and be like, whoa, this is a whole new perspective, a whole new world to experience. So
Yeah.
going through that was really transformative, and even learning tunes, like being able to understand chord voicings and like reading stuff out of a real book. The best part about that then was when I'm studying with Victor Lewis. He's not only a living legend, he's an
Yeah.
amazing drummer, but composes a bunch of stuff, and he
Yep.
was like pushing me to actually compose some music. So there was a handful of lessons that when I was in the composing phase, I'd come into lesson even if he had something else for us to do. I'd say, "Hey, Victor, can we like work out an idea? I'm like kind of doing stuff." He's like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." And he'd jump on the drum set. I'd jump on the keys, and we'd like hash out
Nice.
like trying to work out stuff for 30 minutes. So, by the end actually of my senior year in college, my senior recital, we played 8 of my compositions.
Oh wow.
We played pretty much my first album ever called As the Sun Rises. It's released under my former artist name, Dominic Palombi, which is just my full name.
Okay.
But I plan on actually re-releasing that under Dom Palombi, so that way everything's in one place.
Sure.
So I had the fortunate pleasure to like write a lot of compositions, and then on my senior recital, I just performed all original stuff because I was pretty inspired by all of that.
Yeah.
So piano has been a very big help for not just like me to express myself in another way, because now I just sometimes love noodling on keys and trying to see what other ways I'm feeling outside of just a rhythmic perspective. I mean, drums can play melodies too, don't get me wrong.
Right.
There's something nice about playing some lovely melodies and chords on the keys, and it's been really fun. Sometimes I'm even messing around now doing like Josh Dion, Paris Monster, or Nate Wood kind of stuff where they're playing, chords and bass lines whilst playing drums at the same time.
Wow.
And that stuff's wild. So
no kidding. Jeez. So let's talk a little bit about the album then, because then, or maybe a step before that would be, when did you start to really embrace music from games as something you wanted to perform?
Yeah. So I tell this story like this pretty much all the time. It's kind of the best way to tell it. We track back to 2017, probably a year after I graduate from Rutgers. Coincidentally, during my time at Rutgers, I actually sang with the Rutgers Glee Club, which is a men's chorus. One of the finest men's choruses in the world, in all honesty.
Nice.
And I stayed in touch with a significant amount of those people, amount of those guys. Some of them are my best friends. And we just casually hung out, played games just for fun, video games, tabletop stuff, whatever. They tell me, oh, we like going to this gaming convention called PAX East. Are you interested in going? And I was like, what's that? I have no idea. Never been to a gaming convention before. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to go, have a good time, hang out with friends, and see something new.
Yeah.
No intentions of getting into anything, professionally musically related. Once that kind of happens, I go there and exist and embody the convention experience, because there's so much that goes on. Well, just even the PAX experience. There's so much goes on at conventions. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed. I was like, there's some concerts happening. There's a jam space. I didn't know MagFest was running a jam space at the time. Didn't know what MagFest was. PAX East.
Yeah.
PAX East in Boston.
Yeah.
So I go, enjoy my time with my friends, play a few tournaments. I try to enter in a Mario Kart tournament because Mario Kart's one of my favorite games ever. And it just kind of like a lot of stuff happens. But then I was always like, what is this jam space? I have no idea what it's about. The last day of the con, Sunday, I decided to veer off from my friend group and say, hey, y'all, I'm going to go check this out. I haven't played drums in 3 to 4 days. I need to practice. I need to do something to hit some skins or whatever. So I go to the jam space, and the guys on the stage at the time were the Super Soul Bros. I didn't know who they were, but there was a big panel board that they had a list of video game tunes, and people could sign up to get on the roster to play. So I talked to somebody and say, hey, get me on this Zelda tune, Lost Woods. And then I pull up my phone, listen to it on YouTube. I was like, wait, how does this go again? I don't know. So I listened to it briefly. And then I jump on stage with Robbie Benson, the band leader of the Soul Bros. Didn't know who they were at the time. And then just random other set of people that I've never met before.
Yeah.
We attempt to play a halftime funk version of Lost Woods. And it went very interestingly to
yeah
keep that at where that's at.
Yeah.
So that happens, and then after, the Soul Bros actually end up playing a few tunes, and I stuck around for a little bit of that. I was like, holy crap, these guys are good. I need to get to know these dudes. So I hand Robbie and a few of the guys my card. That was kind of the end of the convention, and that was it. The following year comes by, 2018, and I'm like, okay, all this happened. Let me see who's playing and performing for PAX 2018 next year. And the Soul Bros are leading and headlining the convention during the weekend. I was like, yo, cool. I know these dudes, or I've met some of them. Mm-hmm. So I do my research, look them up online, find the name of the drummer, Chris Heyman, who's now one of my best friends. I message him and be like, hey, man, I don't know if you remember me. I was this drummer that played on this halftime funk fusion version of Lost Woods,
Yeah.
you know. And he was like, "Oh yeah, were you the drummer that didn't suck in this video?" And I was like, "Wait, wait,
Video?
There's a video that exists of it. Apparently, there was a video of the session that I played on that lasted a whole year. It was a year-long joke between all the Soul Bros guys. And they had it, you know, it was just something that they were talking about all this time. And they were like, "Who's that drummer? Who's that guy?" And I meet them all in person when 2018 comes around.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And they were like, "Man, you really got a bad dice roll, didn't you?" Or just, you know, it was just a funny experience, but that led to me getting to know all the guys much better.
Yeah.
And also, like, when I met Chris in person, we talked for like 2 to 3 hours straight after that. It's like that feeling of when you meet somebody and it's like, you know, long lost cousin, long lost brother, you know, you were destined just to kind of know each other. We hit it off, and it was just like, dude, you're super cool. I want to hang out with you after that. So once that happened, they told me all about the video game music stuff. At least they've been covering video game music for a long time. I decided, hey, I want to hang out with you guys. Can we do something this summer? He's like, come to San Jose. I flew out to San Jose in August and stayed with Robbie and Chris for like 3 days. We got to, you know, kind of go around San Jose and parts of California for a little bit. But then we ultimately jammed and streamed on their Twitch channel, which then I was like, oh, there's this whole music streaming world that I didn't know existed either.
Yeah.
But that's what they utilized for a long time for a core of not only their audience, but also getting, you know, video game music out there. And people loved it. People loved it. I had such a blast. So not only did they introduce my knowledge to just like people covering video game music, but then it was like I learned more about, oh, people could do this streaming thing seriously. And I was curious. I came home. I literally got my iPhone, set it up, and started streaming that following weekend.
Wow.
Playing drums online. So, and then after all that, I started streaming regularly. So I was streaming like 3 or 4 days a week. My parents were just like, "Dom, you're playing a lot of drums in the basement more than you normally do." I was like, "Well, I'm trying to do this internet streaming thing. It seems like there's something significant to it." So a lot has changed during that period of time too. Whilst I was at PAX East, the Soul Bros did tell me, "Oh, we go to this convention called MagFest. We can get you on our guest list, and if you come with us, you can stay with us, and we'll, you know, take care of you and X, Y, and Z, and introduce you to a bunch of people." I was like, "Sure, you know what? I've gone this deep in the rabbit hole already. I might as well just keep going at this rate." So, you know, I streamed for that year on Twitch, got to know a lot of the people online and develop a small little community. I leaned heavily on the Soul Bros and their Discord server for people to come watch and help out. So that I still owe a lot to them, because I probably wouldn't have gotten my stream started if it weren't for those guys either.
Yeah.
But then MagFest came around, and I was like, oh, this is a gaming convention. This is a music but gaming convention dedicated to video game stuff, and that's where I've met, you know, a smattering amount of people that either I've idolized, I've watched on the internet, like Charlie Rosen of the 8-Bit Big Band. Adam Neely was there for a short period of time. That's where I met Carlos and Stand in the Rain for the first time, and he was just like, "Yo, wait, you're a really great drummer. We need to talk." And that just it just put a lot of, you know, connecting the dots, and sometimes hard for me to talk about sometimes, but it's just like everything kind of, it was that domino effect. The one thing led to another thing led to another, and I'm here today because I went to a gaming convention with friends for fun, just for fun.
It's crazy.
It
is crazy, and it's great.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful. And so let's talk more specifically then about the album, because it is so good. And you know, Carlos Insane in the Rain plays on it, and I love him so much. I just want to put him in my pocket and take him everywhere with me. And don't tell him, or maybe do tell him I said that. I don't know. I just want to be like, whoop, here's a great tenor player, you know. And Charlie Rosen I've had on the show before to talk about his big band, which is fantastic. And getting to hear him play bass in that way is so fun. So I mean, I guess we'll talk about the originals in a minute, but how did you choose what tunes you wanted to cover when it came to, you know, choosing game music?
So the first actual reason that I started this album was like I've probably been streaming for a little over 2.5 years at this point, or like when the pandemic hit. I didn't necessarily expect the pandemic to hit before I started streaming. I started streaming way before everybody else was like kind of doing stuff.
Yeah.
Pandemic came time, and everybody was like home. Everybody had to stay, isolated and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there were a lot of copyright issues that Twitch was dealing with. So the biggest problem with that is like figuring out what music that you're allowed to actually stream
Yeah.
and have the rights to be able to play to, and it made things more complicated because I'm just like, I can't just be a radio station playing along to any kind of cover that people want to do. I did that for a while, and I'm kind of done with that because it's fun to learn music on the fly, but at the same time, sometimes it's like somebody says one thing and then it passes through the other ear. One goes in one ear, goes one out, and it's like I don't get to embody that experience. So I wanted to like try to have a bunch of my own tracks that I could play along to, or my own arrangements, my own recordings, just for my own sake for having on streams. But then I was just like, wait a minute. I've gotten to meet so many cool people over the years. Why not I just get some of these people to record on some of these tracks?
Yeah.
Wait, I should just put out some of this music. And I kept it on a very big DL for the time that I was going to work on a new album. Because I haven't put out... When I put out As the Sun Rises, I put that out, I want to say, in 2017, I think is when I released that. So it's been 3 years approximately since I've put out new music.
Since I see.
Yeah. It's just been a long time. I've written and had a bunch of other originals and stuff, but I haven't taken the initiative to like actually put out new stuff. So I picked the tunes specifically because I wanted to have tunes that I feel like everybody liked, but also tunes that inspired me greatly.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to make sure that the tunes that I picked and the musicians I had on fit well. Like I wanted to make sure that there's one thing when you have somebody special on a certain track, but it's another thing when you have a track specifically for a certain person.
Yeah.
And writing for somebody is a bigger thing. So with all the people that I've had involved, so like for Airman specifically, I felt like Carlos would have been perfect because the one time I actually had a version of Airman originally, he popped onto my stream one time. And it was out of this Casio keyboard at the time. And I was like, "Hey man, do you want to play over this just for shits and giggles?" And he's like, "Sure, I'll do it." But this was me not thinking about game night at the time as the magnitude as it was. So once he recorded that solo, he kind of forgot about whatever happened the period of time. And then I told him, "Oh, this is going to be on a record." And he was like, "Wait, what?" Drop that out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So then I guess like I picked Airman. I haven't played any Mega Man games, but that tune just slaps so hard. And I also heard of a really cool version by Joshua Morse who did Airman, but in a similar funky, slower kind of way. And I wanted to like kind of have something that replicates that, but then I was just like, wait, what if Lewis Cole had like similar synth sounds, but it was like Airman. I'm trying to remember so then the other tracks were like after Airman, it was like Corridors of Time. So I had Corridors of Time.
So good.
Well, I haven't played Chrono Trigger. I'll be honest. I haven't played the game yet.
You get a pass. It's okay.
Usually people would just like rip me a new one and be like, "What the hell are you doing?
It's okay.
You haven't played the game."
It's
no.
fine.
So I did that track for a couple of reasons. One, when I met Patrick Bartley, it was actually because I went to the 8-Bit Big Band's first show in New York City. And coincidentally at the time, Pat was playing with the group. I was just a member of the audience. He was playing on the gig.
Okay.
The moment that he was about to leave the gig, I go up to him and introduce myself and just say, "Hey, man, I'm a drummer. Love your work. Saw your stuff online." And he's like, "Wait, you're a drummer? Give me your card." And he actually coincidentally needed a drummer for his J Music band for a gig. Like in a few weeks. It was one of those happenstance moments where,
and of course his not to interrupt, but his J Music band, that's anime and J, like all of that. I mean,
Japanese pop,
Japanese pop,
Japanese video games.
Yeah.
It's anything Japanese influence essentially is what they do.
Yeah.
And it just like he called me at like 2 or 3 in the morning that night, say, "Hey man, do you want to do this gig? I checked you out. You're great. Let's." And I was like, "Yeah, I ain't saying no to this."
Of course.
So that's how our relationship started. He called me on a J Music thing. I've done some work for him with his band. That gig at the time, actually, he had the great Australian singer Donna Burke, who I know lives in Japan. She's done like Tokyo Ghoul, Final Fantasy, mainly known for Snake Eater on Metal Gear Solid, if I recall correctly. She's great, absolutely amazing human being. She flew all the way from Japan just to come to New York for this gig.
Wow.
Which is cool. So that gig happened. A few weeks after that, he was like, "Hey man, I lead this video game music jam session in the city, and we're doing this theme where it was actually Chrono Trigger music." He was like, "I'd love to have you on." I was like, "Dude, let's do it."
Yeah.
So that actually like opened my eyes to getting to know more about just Chrono Trigger music in general. And I forget the composer's name, unfortunately. But just the magic and the essence of that music is so incredible, and how well it correlates to telling the story in the game. Made me be like, okay, yeah, I need to cover a Chrono Trigger tune, because this music has, it hits different. It feels like it's deep video game music lore. And I wanted to bring it full circle with having Pat on a version of Corridors of Time, because I was just like, if he had me doing that kind of stuff, it's a perfect fit, because I remember him telling me how passionate he felt about playing these tunes when we did that session. And all those covers we did are on their YouTube channel. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
Then I'm trying to think. Well, Mario Kart, Waluigi Pinball. Again, Mario's my favorite series. Mario Kart's my favorite series, hands down. And I don't know why, or how I came up with the crazy idea of having two of the baddest bass players on the internet doing a bass battle duel.
It's so good.
There was there was this album called SMV, which is Stanley Clark, Marcus Miller, and Victor Wooten. And I was like, what stuff exists out there that multiple bass players are playing melodies, bass lines, chords, and stuff like that? And that was like one of the only things that I found outside of Christian McBride doing his podcast series, where I think him and Ron Carter actually had a thing going on where they both played tunes together, both playing bass.
Yeah.
You don't regularly see that too often.
No, it doesn't happen much. Yeah.
No. So I was just like, how could I take a Mario Kart tune and make Charlie and Adam do some crazy trading and try to make a big bass feature? And it turned out better than expected, but we had to definitely jump through some hoops on how to make it work, because what actually happened was I had to have Adam and Charlie both record two bass parts each, one melody part and one bass part.
Oh, wow.
And then mixing and mastering that thing, shouts to Tony Dickinson, who did an amazing job mixing and mastering the whole record. We had to treat each player uniquely. So the bass players that played the bass parts, we had to take those two parts and kind of combine them as one person, even though they're being played by two different people. And then the melodies were just we had to roll off the low end as much as possible, so they're trebles and the higher end stuff. So it made them sound more like a horn player. So that was the biggest thing with that.
Yeah.
But I also, I love Mario Kart music. It's some of my favorite music out there. Halo, I mean, I played a lot of Halo as a kid. It's probably my favorite game on Xbox, and I felt like the Soul Bros sound for that was just perfect, in all honesty. I think that just the Halo theme is just so iconic.
Yeah.
That it's just I just essentially wanted to get the most iconic, covers that I felt connected to.
Yeah.
Onto the record. I think I'm missing one more. Green Hill Zone. Green Hill Zone.
Sonic.
That's why. Sonic. Just another iconic tune in my opinion. But I had a fun idea with what if Sonic had a drum and bass kind of thing? Because when you listen to the original composition, it's so short. It's just a small bit of the tune. I was just like, how can I expand this and make this a little bit more tangible to actually make it feel like a song? And I had to double up on the melody, but then do the bridge twice as fast. But it all worked out perfectly. And Grammy Award winning Button Masher, which is also, he played on that tune along with Max Boyko. And then it's just So I guess I picked those covers because, one, those were tunes that some of them resonated with me very well, but at the same time too, I just wanted to get some good hits that most of the VGM community knew of. That's kind of, I guess, why I picked those tunes specifically.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't know.
Yeah. It was my first introduction to Max Boyko, and me being a old trumpet player, I just always connect to the trumpet players. So.
Yeah, I actually would not know Max if it weren't for Pat either. Like
Okay.
Pat Bartley alone introduced me to quite a few people in New York City that
Okay.
were also deeply into VGM. Like Max has done stuff for Charlie's 8-Bit Big Band. He leads his great band VGM Collective
Yep.
on occasion. So there's like the whole slew of people that I've met through others have just been crazy, and everybody's
Yeah.
like super passionate about
Yeah.
this stuff. So it's just feels so new and exciting.
And again, I've brought it up a number of times already in our conversation, but these originals are really great, and I love all three of them, and they're all three so different, which I really appreciate as well. So, talk about the very first track is called "Now Loading." So, tell me about that one.
It's funny for this tune in particular. I think when I was starting to write originals that were kind of based off of video game or any kind of gaming concepts, that I wanted to make sure that I have some sort of kind of feelings related to them. I remember specifically when I wrote this tune, I didn't really know. I just thought the thumping C's at the beginning was part of like a loading bar kind of
Yeah.
just coming across the screen. But the more and more I've thought about it as the tune has evolved over the years, I love the idea of it's just when you get a new game for the first time, you're loading it up for the first time. It's that excitement that hits you. It's that, the ability to just like, okay, sure, you're waiting for it to load up. It's probably not the most exciting thing ever, but it's those jitters. It's that kind of when you get to start something new, it maybe it's not even gaming related for that matter. It's the opportunity um, to pursue a new passion, the opportunity to pursue something that will take a little bit of time to develop over the years. But I kind of like the idea of the tune is something that like hits hard and gives people a sense of confidence to be like, okay, this is a fresh start. This is something that we can try for the first time. And I feel like that tune in particular, especially with how it's evolved, like it did not sound how it did on the album originally when I first was recording it. But once Tony Dickinson did his magic on bass and guitar, I was like, dude, this is it. This freaking rocks, man. it just has like some really. I mean, I guess you could think it almost kind of sounds like an anime opening for that matter too.
Sure.
Sure. But yeah, that one just hits hard. And then Dave Pollock doing some like soprano sax stuff at the end too. He's just one of my best friends. He shreds that thing to pieces.
And
so
it's hard to sound good on soprano sax, I think. I mean, you can listen to recordings of John Coltrane and feel that way. Like, this must be a hard instrument to play.
I wouldn't know because I don't play saxophone, but I guess like there's probably a certain similar way to play different saxophones, because I know the fingerings are a little bit different. The reeds might feel a little bit different, but I know like to Dave, I see him play tenor saxophone great. I see him play alto as his main instrument.
Okay.
But then when he picks up soprano or tenor, he just sounds as good as he does on the alto. I'm like, dude, you're just a monster.
Yeah.
Then when lagging came around, man, I still actually am thinking about how the heck did I come up with this tune. I love it so much because of all of the really cool musical toys that I get to play with in this one.
Yeah.
I feel like the thing about lagging when we're playing a game or something, it's not the most exciting thing to experience. It honestly sucks, especially if you're playing some sort of kind of game and the game's going really well, and then your internet just like backs out and be like, nope, I'm not feeling it today, man. Just don't want to deal with that crap. And you have these very stuttery kind of moments, and I was like, how can I make something funky yet have those similar feelings? So I've tried to work with that, that 5/4 polyrhythm thing that develops the groove in the front.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the melody, with everybody playing the melody the first time through in unison, or not necessarily in unison, but rhythmically in unison.
Yeah.
And then getting to play with displacement to where people hear like kind of a call and response to where it's like lagging behind each other the second time through. And then when the bridge hits, it kind of snaps back. We're not lagging anymore. Oh, wait, the rhythm section then lags the second time through. And then we just get back to like kind of the main phrase. So I'm taking like, the classic AABA jazz tradition thing. When we play a lot of standards, but I wanted to kind of, replicate those feelings when you're listening to it, because it takes the listener on a journey, in
Yes.
my opinion. And then my dudes Jasper and Ryan just absolutely slayed on that tune, because they've really, I know my friend Jasper loves doing like original stuff. He feels more comfortable when he's playing on other people's original tunes.
Cool.
Just an amazing player in general, but they just both did really well.
Yeah.
And then Win or Lose We're Still Friends. That was actually a tune I've had written for a long time. I just feel like the title hits well for the concept of this whole album.
Yes.
Because again, with game nights have been one of my favorite things to do with friends. It's been one of my things I like doing outside of just playing music. Just getting to enjoy people's company, just to get to enjoy, being around others and doing something because we want to and because it's fun. I think that's the whole essence about that. And at the end of the day, too, regardless of whatever happens in games, we all have to kind of realize that sometimes those games we don't need to take seriously. We don't need to put out, a crazy amount of energy, because sometimes it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Win or lose, we're still friends. It's just kind of I think I titled it because it's a good message to remember for everybody, that we could, like, there's so many things that can happen in our lives that seem like they matter but really don't. And I wanted something that, like, just hit the heart a little bit, and for a nice contrast in the album too.
Yeah, because it's slower. It's like I wouldn't really call it a ballad, but it is.
I would call it a ballad.
Would you?
It's a smooth jazz ballad.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a nice contrast. Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of just everything just being like funk in your face, just complete stank face material and that sort of thing. It's nice to have like we could get a little sensitive for a minute and have a minute to breathe and reflect and relax. And that track Dave Pollock plays probably one of my favorite solos he's ever played. Like, if you don't know who Dave Pollock is, he's not only a great saxophonist, a great educator. He has a great YouTube channel. I've done stuff for him for a long, long time. And it's like, if you want to know what he sounds like, just listen to that one track. That's he's got little bebop lines, he's got a little bit of soul, he's got a little bit of other stuff in there that is just like it kind of encompasses who he is as a person.
Yeah. So, Dom, who are you listening to right now? Who inspires you musically, whether it's got to do with video games or not?
Oh man, this is always a tough question, because I feel like the problem is, for me, I don't want to say I don't actively listen to music as much as I used to.
Yeah.
But I don't actively listen to music as much as I used to.
I understand. I do.
It's not for any particular reason.
Yeah.
I guess, like, when I'm in search for ideas or concepts, sometimes I will listen to my other friends that are into the video game music stuff recently. So I guess if I have to think, I might just pull up my Spotify and just look at what I've listened up. I mean
mine's a shit show too, so it's
and that's
all over the place.
Totally fine. I would say anything Lettuce. Adam Deitch has been a genius, because he leads that group, and it's just some of the most killing things that I've listened to in a while. Their band just is like a great example of an instrumental funk band that can get people feeling anything. Like, they've been doing it for so long too. I gotta think. It's been a hot minute. I mean, other tunes that I've liked. I mean, Tower of Power was always a band that I liked listening to growing up.
Yeah.
Little bits of the Meters, Kool and the Gang were great too. I'm trying to think. I mean, when I was leading my first band, I was always like thinking of Pat Metheny or Stevie Wonder. I love Pat Metheny's stuff. His track "Here to Stay" off of, I think, the album "We Like It Here" is one of my absolute favorites of his. I just kind of like the really groovy stuff. Sometimes I tune in and I just listen to the Watercolor Station on Sirius XM, and I just like bask in that stuff, because that's all stuff that I hear people doing. Outside of that, it could be kind of anything. I mean, Mark Juliana had some really great music with his beat music stuff. Some of his other original things that he's done are pretty great. I'm trying to see who else. I guess, like, it is kind of left and right, out of
Yeah.
left and right field, because
Yeah.
one, I guess I'm also listening to a lot of other drummers and seeing what their influences are.
Yeah.
But now it's like now that I'm listening to video game music more, I'm like, okay, what composers are doing what,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I'm listening to OSTs that I haven't heard before, like the Ridge Racer OST
Oh,
has been a banger
yeah, that's a good
of
one.
stuff. Yeah, that I mean, Persona 5 is also really
Oh, yeah.
killing, but I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't know of that if it weren't for the J Music guys.
Mm.
Um, there's so much other stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's sometimes hard to listen to everything, even when you feel like that. Like I actually played through
Yeah.
Undertale on stream a few months ago, and
Nice.
now I'm a big fan of the Undertale OST because
Mm-hmm.
Toby Fox is a freaking genius. Not only for that, because not only is he makes such a really creative and cool game, but I think he really hits the nail on the head with the music being coming in at the perfect moments when you're at a peak point of the story, and the
Sure.
music reflecting on when you're getting to a certain point. Like I love the track Another Medium when you're getting into like the hot lands,
Mm-hmm.
that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing. That's probably one of my favorites of his OST. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of threw a bunch of answers out there, but
I love it. I love it. Well, what are you working on right now in terms, are you recording? Are you planning another game night in the future? What's happening there?
well, so I know my current goal right now is to get more game nights happening, meaning having the band play more cons and more shows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Still in an application phase because the band is pretty new to the
Yeah.
scene,
Yeah.
and I still feel like I still have a lot of work to do to kind of get things going. But my hopes is to apply for Mag West, so hopefully I'll be on the West Coast for Mag West. I'm still waiting to hear actually from Too Many Games, so there might be a chance that game night might be there in Philly.
Sweet.
Outside of that, I am trying to work on some new arrangements. I'm trying to work on some more originals. I actually have a fun concept with trying to work on more tunes or writing original compositions based on tabletop ideas, and
Oh,
and
okay.
well, just for the because it's kind of a fun little thing that I don't think a lot of people think about.
Yeah.
Like I know D&D, Dungeons and Dragons is huge on the internet nowadays, but I always like have thoughts of like with the game night theme, what other ways can I kind of pull from different
Mm-hmm.
avenues, or what other kinds of inspirations? So like I'm trying to find other fun concepts, whether it's something with like dealing cards or rolling dice, or you know just kind of the normal actions that sometimes we do when we're playing a game, and seeing how I can musically make that into a concept or an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Outside of that, I'm still streaming on Twitch. That's been
Yep.
kind of my main bread and butter. I stream 3 days a week, and my community sometimes we do video game Mondays where they request random video game OSTs that I haven't heard before, and I just jam out to them and try to see some of them are bangers, and I'm like, save that for later. I want to check that out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a fun explorative experience on Twitch because I get to utilize that as a creative space. And I'm always trying to work with other people too. So like I do freelance recording, I do teaching, gigging. Because
Mm-hmm.
of my studio setup now, I love recording for people remotely. So there's any other composers for video games or others that are listening that need drums, give me a call. I'd be more than happy to supply some music for y'all.
And I recommend him.
I
You're
did.
an
I didn't.
amazing drummer.
I didn't pay her to say that. Okay.
No, no, you didn't. But it was so great also to have you here in Minneapolis for VGM Con, and that's a con that I think this was the 8th year. I'm trying to remember now, but it's such a fun experience, and it's so nice for us too, the locals here, to have something locally and to be watching it grow every year. So talk a little bit about what you did here just this past weekend, even though it's going to be a few weeks before this airs
Yeah.
yet. But I'm just curious, what that was like for you to come to Minneapolis and hang out at VGM Con and
So
perform.
yeah, no. So like VGM Con to me, I've been telling a lot of people that I felt like it's been the most fulfilling weekend for me in years. In all honesty,
Wow.
for a lot of reasons, for a whole lot of reasons. One, I'm trying to remember the first time that I met Austin and Vaughn, some of the guys that work behind VGM Con.
Yeah.
I believe it was probably either I think it was probably online, if I remember correctly. They probably came through one of my streams once or twice. But we kind of hit it off after a period of time, and they had me invited me on to VGM Con Line, so I performed like a solo set of doing stuff for them during the pandemic because they couldn't have people in person.
Yeah.
But after that, I kept in touch with them. We actually hung out at MagFest this previous year or this recent year, and I was like, hey, what's the possibility we can make game night happen at VGM Con? And he's like, we can work something out.
Yeah.
So, in my mind already, I was like, okay, cool. We could potentially have another cool thing to work towards. But I also never been to Minneapolis before. Didn't know what to expect. I kind of wish I got to see more, but at the same time, I was just like, I was happy I was just there for the convention because that was my main focus.
Mm-hmm.
I guess man, one, it was just fun to be around people. That conventions sometimes can be overwhelming. There's a lot of people walking around, so many things going on at once. It still had that feeling, but at the same time, I loved the intimacy. I loved just the fact that we could, people like you and I could have a sit-down conversation for 20, 30 minutes, actually make a connection, and then, rinse and repeat and do that with other people. Sometimes at conventions, you don't get the chance to do that. You really only get the chance to say, hi, hey, what do you do? That seems cool. Let me give you a follow. And then nothing happens. Not many people take the initiative to actually make something happen after you meet somebody. And that's something I know, one, I'm trying to do more of. I'm trying to take advantage of hey, I met so many cool people. We need to do stuff. We need to make, things happen. So, one, I appreciated just the ability to actually have a connection with people. I actually got in with Carlos on Thursday. So we actually took day zero. We took the day zero before the convention started to get in, get to our hotel, and be situated. And I'm going to just be honest. That's the move to do to any convention. Because it's better off, even if the con was only starting at 3 p.m., we still actually had stuff to do on Friday morning. It was great to have a day to kind of just relax and chill, kind of walk around the space, see who was around. Then Friday morning we had the sound check for my game night band. So it was cool because one, that was the second performance ever playing with game night. Our first performance with game night was at MagFest at the Belvedere lobby. So, I guess the other thing too with this band in particular is when I want to try to get certain people, it takes certain circumstances to make that happen. I was talking with Austin the whole time about okay, I have this lineup in mind of people that we're trying to get. So we really tried to correlate, things where he was getting some of the guys I had in my band to do their own stuff. So that way it was easier for them to work with rather than me just to bring, 6 people with me and expect, X amount of a budget and so many other logistics. It was quite a headache at times dealing with all the logistics because being a band leader is not easy.
No.
That sort of thing. So I was just happy that once we were finally getting things rolling at the convention, I was like, okay, I had some time to breathe. But then on top of that, the best part of the weekend was meeting some of my Twitch moderators, some of my community members from people online in person for the first time. I've been streaming on Twitch now for over 3 years, and the one thing about streaming is it's very complicated. It's very hard. It's not an easy thing to do, and I for me having as much experience as I have, you would think I would know better of how to cope with streams being low, streams being high. The viewership sometimes wavers. Sometimes you won't get X amount of subs per month, and that depends on certain circumstances of what's happening in the world. But meeting all the community members and other friends in person made everything worth it. It didn't matter at the end of the day what happened. The fact that there were people that were there that cared about what I did and that cared about me as a person in a positive way, made it worthwhile for me, because I was just like, man, the fact that some people, I had one of my moderators come from Canada just to see me at the con. I was like, dude, I also had two of my best friends from high school that happened to be on a road trip that happened to be in Minneapolis that weekend just to see my show. And I was just like, so it was a lot of emotional feelings for me personally, because people are coming from all different directions to actually get a chance to see me do my thing, and
Yeah.
and that's like, I wouldn't trade that for the world. I wouldn't trade that for the world. So it was like, not only did I have a great time just hanging out with people and vibing, but then
Mm-hmm.
playing with game night and playing with other groups too. Like I played with VGM Collective. That was so much fun. I
Yeah.
played with Robbie's set Guabs, and we
Yeah.
had some fun playing some tunes. And then the game night thing was, the peak of my weekend, because like it was the happiest I've felt in years performing with a new
Wow.
project, doing something, and I was emotional on stage. I was literally emotionally shaking and just
Wow.
like feeling all sorts of kinds of feels. I don't think I've ever felt as passionate about something in music than this specifically.
Wow.
And I felt like it's kind of hit me lately that I'm like, I think I'm destined to do this game night thing seriously.
Mm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
this is what I ultimately want to do for, the future. If it nets me money, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter, because the most important thing is I'm getting the opportunity to bring really cool people into something that I feel like is really special. And
Yeah.
getting to share that with the video game music community is like an absolute privilege. So,
Yeah.
VGM Con was just a great experience overall for me. Nothing but good things to say about it. And I just, again, the atmosphere I felt like was perfect. It was,
Mm-hmm.
everything that you want in a con they had. And I like the fact that the people there, all the staff and everybody that I've met, they care about every single person that goes.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're performing or if you're just an attendee. Everybody's being taken care of well and treated well, and that shows. That really, really shows.
Yeah, it's such an amazing event, and I can't wait for next year. This was my favorite year so far, and the only one I missed was the Conline. It's the only one I didn't participate in, and if I did, I don't remember. I don't think I did, because pandemic. Who knows what happened? But yeah, I love it so much, and I'm just so glad that you guys were there and that you were there and that I got to meet you in person. And hear you play live was such a wonderful experience, because you're a tremendously talented musician, and so are the people that you played with, and it's just such a joy to hear that caliber of music making with the caliber of music that is game music, which is wonderful and we all love. So it was a treat for us to hear you.
I really appreciate that. I honestly wouldn't be able to do it if it weren't for, the musicians that were able to join me too, and had as much interest as I did with this particular project. It's a lot to do it myself, but when I get to do it with people that care as much as me, it only makes things better, in my opinion. Especially with my standard, I try to put myself towards a very high standard, and I want musicians that are on the same level or higher than that, so that way there's only only one way to go, and that's keep going up and trying to push things to a higher level. Especially with just like when I'm playing with people, I want to be playing with people that are better than me. That way it pushes me to do better. And I feel like there's more people that are of that caliber now that are starting to take video game music seriously and take the culture of the community seriously too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, I know I want to do it again. I'm going to do it as much as I possibly can. So
awesome. Well, stay in touch and make sure that we know every single new thing you have, because I know it's going to be wonderful. Is there anything else you want to add before we go for the day?
Well, first off, Emily, thank you for having me. This has been an absolute joy to chat with you for a bit about all this stuff.
Yeah, of course.
If people want to find me on my endeavors or anything that I got going on, if you search Dom Palombi Music on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I primarily stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Dom Palombi Music. That's usually where my whereabouts are. I took a lot of footage of all the VGM stuff.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to be putting up some music videos on my YouTube channel in the next few weeks.
Sweet.
Still waiting to get a lot of those parts together, but I'm excited to kind of just have that stuff out there so then I can utilize that to apply at any other convention. So heck, if there are people that are listening and you want game night to be at a certain place or a certain show, please let me know, because I'm looking for more places to play with this band. And yeah, I think for me it's just, I only plan on doing some more really cool stuff in the future, so y'all are along for the journey. I'm just feel like I'm just getting started.
Great. Well, Dom, thank you so much for all your time today. It was really great to speak with you.
Likewise, Emily, thank you so much.